Imagine a quiet night in Manchuria. A red brick compound stands silent beneath the stars, yet within its walls, a nightmare unfolds. This was Unit 731, a hidden Japanese laboratory of horrors during World War II, a place where prisoners, men, women, even children, were treated not as human beings, but as expendable logs. No voice ever escaped its walls. No prisoner ever walked out alive. This is not legend. This is history. What lies ahead? Our journey in this story will uncover the dark history of Unit 731. We'll begin with how and why the secret program was created. Then we'll descend into its inner chambers to witness the ghastly experiments performed there, a catalogue of suffering so monstrous it seems unimaginable. We'll reach the emotional peak with the most disturbing details, and finally, explore the aftermath. How Japan tried to bury these crimes, and the chilling legacy that remains. The birth of Unit 731. In 1931, Japan invaded and occupied Manchuria. By 1936, the Imperial Army had built a research facility on the outskirts of Harbin. Officially, it was called the Epidemic Prevention and Water Supply Unit, a harmless name for something far darker. Its commander, Lieutenant General Shirashii, dreamed of turning disease into a weapon of war. The facility grew into a sprawling base, laboratories, barracks, crematoria, even execution grounds. From the start, secrecy was absolute. The prisoners came from everywhere: poor villagers, political dissidents, captured soldiers, men, women, the elderly, children, even pregnant women. All of them were stripped of identity and given a chilling nickname by their captors, Maruda asterisk, wooden logs, logs to be cut down, dissected, and discarded. The experiment and torment inside Unit 731. Morality ceased to exist. Prisoners were subjected to surgery without anesthesia. Limbs were severed and crudely reattached. Organs were cut out of conscious victims so doctors could observe how the human body reacted to trauma. Diseases were weaponized: plague, cholera, anthrax. Prisoners were deliberately infected, injected, and left to rot while researchers recorded every fever, every spasm, every last breath. Rats carrying plague were released into cells. Fleas infected with bubonic plague were dropped onto villages from planes. Wells were poisoned. Entire communities became unknowing test sites. Some of the experiments were grotesque beyond belief. Male prisoners were infected with syphilis, then forced to assault female prisoners so doctors could watch the disease spread. Pregnant women were deliberately infected, then cut open alive so the fetus could be studied. Unborn children became test subjects, dissected before they even had a chance at life. Others were tortured in cruel endurance tests. Prisoners were starved until their bones jutted through the skin. Limbs were frozen solid, then thawed, to study frostbite. People were locked in pressure chambers until their eyes burst. Children were sealed in gas chambers, while doctors calmly wrote down the exact moment their small bodies stopped moving. The compound itself became a house of horrors. Jars filled with human heads, fetuses, and severed hands lined the laboratories. The screams of the dying echoed through cold corridors. Assistants, some only teenagers, recalled walking into specimen rooms where pregnant women lay splayed open, their unborn children exposed for study. These images scarred their memories forever. By the end of the war, at least 3,000 people had died inside Unit 731. Outside, through plague bombs and poisoned wells, hundreds of thousands more perished. To the staff, these deaths were data. To the victims, it was hell on earth. Emotional peak. The horror too difficult to bear. Imagine standing in that room. The air stinking of formaldehyde. Shelves filled with jars of preserved human remains. A pregnant woman's body cut open. Her fetus displayed for research. This was not the twisted imagination of horror fiction. It was real. It happened. Unit 731 stripped away every shred of humanity. People were reduced to logs. Their screams were ignored. Their suffering was a statistic. The true horror of Unit 731 is not just in the pain it inflicted, but in the cold, methodical way it was carried out. The aftermath. Secrets and silence. When Japan surrendered in 1945, Unit 731 tried to erase itself. Documents were burned. Buildings destroyed. Prisoners executed to silence them forever. But the truth could not be hidden completely. The Soviets held trials, exposing some of the crimes, but the Americans had other plans. Instead of punishing the scientists, the US granted them immunity. In exchange for their research, the results of human torture were deemed too valuable to destroy. General Shirashii lived quietly after the war, never tried for his crimes. Many of his colleagues went on to become professors, doctors, and government officials. Meanwhile, the victims were forgotten. For decades, Japan denied that Unit 731 had ever existed. Only in the late 20th century did survivors and journalists finally force the truth into the open. Today, the old compound stands as a museum. Visitors walk through the ruins, seeing the rusted instruments, the photographs, the preserved testimonies. The walls whisper with ghosts. Legacy. Remembering a nightmare story of Unit 731 is not just a war story, it is a warning. It shows how science, stripped of morality, can become a weapon of terror. Inside that compound, doctors abandon their humanity and turn human lives into data points. At least 14,000 victims are believed to have died inside Unit 731. Outside, through biological warfare, hundreds of thousands more may have perished, and yet, no one has been fully held accountable. The silence around Unit 731 is chilling. It leaves us with questions. How many more secrets remain buried? How many families still wonder what happened to their loved ones? And how could so many people commit such horrors and walk away unpunished? As we close this chapter, remember, Unit 731 was real. It happened. The ghosts of its victims still linger in history's shadows. Their suffering warns us of what happens when cruelty is cloaked in science, when human life is treated as disposable. Unit 731 remains one of the darkest secrets of war, a nightmare carved into history.